What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra. As always, I am your host, Numac, hosting a podcast that is a proud partner of the Blue Wire family and the Eurostep Podcast Network. And joining me week in, week out, pod in, pod out, is my lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How's everybody out in Totland, Tot Nation?
The video watchers could see that you had like your most profound radio face on, I think. Like if
Oh yeah, I can kick into it without actually having any radio
radio
experience.
experience. um
Uh,
with about a week and a half in the training camp, or 2 weeks maybe. 2 weeks,
I think
yeah.
I think just week.
Was it last? Yeah, I think it was. Time is not
It
real.
feels a lot now that it's here. It feels like we are have an
We've been here for a
overload of
while.
information. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is a week. Yeah. um we want to look into the positional battles across the 90 men roster to make it to the 53 men roster at the end of camp. So this pod is going to be all off of offense positional battles: QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. And then another pod later this week is going to be defense. So only the offense this time, which makes a sense. So there's a little more to chew on this way versus the defense, which is going to be a lot to chew on, frankly. But first and foremost, some Packers news. Packers were the unfortunate subject of football Twitter Monday morning. Yeah, Monday morning, when they released Jonathan Garvin on his birthday. Jonathan Garvin was on the 53-man roster last year. Played in 14 games last year, in all 16 in 21, and in 8 in 2020. He was drafted by the Packers in the 7th round in 2020. So not too much to decipher from this, other than like it's probably good he didn't make the roster or got cut. Not good. You kind of don't want to say it's good, but in 14 games last year, he didn't really do much. 2 pass deflections, and 8 total tackles, with 2 QB hits. So not a whole lot of action for Jonathan Garvin. He had an all right year in 2021, 1.5 sacks, 19 tackles. But and he started one game in 21, but yeah, just didn't really make a jump from year 2 to year 3.
yeah, a lot of opportunity, even for being rotational edge rusher. Righty was definitely on the wall when he was taking snaps with the interior defensive lineman. And obviously with Lucas Van Ness in the fold now too, it's like even with Rashawn Gary still coming back from injury, there was just going to be, there's only so many chairs, available to guys like Garvin, Ladarius Hamilton, guys that are kind of like bubble guys, I would say. And Garvin was definitely kind of part of that. Just a shame that it happened on his birthday, but that is also just what happens in general,
Mm-hmm.
regardless if it's your birthday or not.
Matt LaFleur had an interesting quote. Interesting, like it's just what do you say otherwise? About Jonathan Garvin being released on his birthday. Quote: "The business never stops," which is more true in the NFL than I think any other major league sport. Like the
Yeah,
business is the business.
absolutely.
Snap count wise, he wasn't really doing much last year. He had his snaps halved. PFF does this funny thing where it just hides the last row for the scroll bar. So I'm pretty sure he got like 85-ish, 95-ish snaps in 2020, 396 in 2021, and then 194 in 2022. So mostly performance based. I would bet that sort of the end of the year emergence of Devontae Wyatt and them drafting him kind of had led to him not getting as many snaps.
Yeah.
So all the best in the future, but not on the Packers anymore. Freeing up some roster spots, which the Packers didn't take long to fill. They had a couple. This end of the 90-man roster fills this weekend. I think they had a couple more receivers that they signed and other things, but it's a lot of moving parts at this time of the year as you're trying to figure out who your best 90 are before the preseason games. One of them they signed was former Giants wide receiver and tight end Andre Miller. He's a rookie, so calling him a former Giants wide receiver tight end isn't exactly totally accurate. But Andre Miller, out of Maine, he was a grad student. He played for a few years up there. Receiving statistics this past year, played in 9 games, had 39 catches for 700-ish yards, and 3 touchdowns. So he had a one rush of 25 yards, so maybe some sort of gadget tool there. But
Yeah.
like a lot of the teams, just like we talked about the Packers, there's gonna be a lot of moving parts right now amongst teams, and guys are just getting picked up to see what they can do and possibly push other guys out of like their 6th or 7th spot.
Yeah. Couple offensive line additions. James Empey, believe he was from the Titans,
Mm-hmm.
if not, if memory serves. And then most recently, Cole Schneider, who the Packers had in camp last year and then was one of the first round of cuts. He makes his way back to Green Bay. Both centers, which is kind of interesting, I would say. It's
Mm-hmm.
very honing in on a very specific position, even with, as we'll get into probably, with all the offensive linemen that are versatile and can play all sorts of positions and everything like that. Packers are certainly examining a need possibly behind Josh Myers and company. So, yeah, that's where it is for right now, at least on the 90-man roster.
For what it's worth, the Packers released lineman Chuck Falagia and tight end Cameron McDonald to make room for Miller and Schneider. So, as we said, just kind of that time that obviously most everybody knows is really just figuring out who can make an impression in practice, which is
Mhm.
kind of the fun part of training camp is seeing guys really work hard to do their thing. So, without further ado, should we hop right into these grades? Not these grades. These battles.
Positional
These
battles.
battles.
I
Couldn't tell you what that was, but I loved it.
had like Rock'em Sock'em robots like right here, just like,
We could
yeah.
get some Rock'em Sock'ems.
Oh yeah.
Little punchies action going on. Little punch punch. Anyways, we'll start with a simple one. Quarterback, obviously, Jordan Love is going to be the starter. There's really no pushing him unless he's just stinking it up all preseason long. But if you've been paying attention to anything in camp, he hasn't been. Jordan Love really showing out in camp in the short to mid range depth of the field, and he's kind of honing in those long balls. He's had a couple highlights on Twitter that are really nice, but for now, he's doing not so bad over the middle and just short dump offs that way. So at least if you're not gonna be able to hit deep guys consistently, and he's going to be a quote unquote rookie, I'm not expecting him to be able to dot passes every single throw. Being accurate in the short range is very important.
Yes, absolutely.
I went. Go
Um,
ahead. Sorry.
I was, well, I think I was gonna set you up here, not to put you on the spot, but you were in Green Bay over the weekend.
I was.
Did you get to see Mr. Love
I
at
did.
work?
I did. I having grew up in Green Bay. You think I would have been to a practice before, but I hadn't. And so it
Really?
was my first one, and I underestimated how early you probably should get there. We got there at like 10:05 for 10:30 practice, and we got like legitimately the last 3 seats in the entire stands and didn't have to wait at all. And so we were on the defensive end of the field for most of it, but when they did like 11 on 11, we had a good view of some of the throws. One missed deep throw to Watson, just like an overthrow, but there was one throw that he had to Romeo Dobbs across the middle where me, my dad, and like everybody around us didn't even see Romeo Dobbs coming across the middle, and it was just planted perfectly for him to catch it on the sideline and turn upfield. Like it was a really, really nice catch. Couple more Jaden Reed that way too, including a nice over the shoulder catch that went for a touchdown and big old celebration between Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. So Yeah, I think Jordan Love is doing as good as you could expect him right now. It seems like Matt Schneeman from The Athletic wrote today that Jordan Love is frustrated with the struggles that the offense is having because the defense has won all five, I guess, periods, if you want to call them like the battles they've had. But frankly, I'm not too surprised at that. There's a lot more
No,
continuity on that defensive side and a lot more experience than there is on the offensive side. So I can see being frustrated, but as a fan, I'm not surprised about it.
no, I would certainly not be either. I mean, we have talked about it. We'll talk about it tonight. We'll talk about it honestly the entire season. It's a
Hmm.
young offense, and there's been a lot of turnover. It's obviously from Rogers to Love, but look at all the wide receivers. That Bill Barnwell stat of the most inexperienced QB or most total inexperience between a QB and a wide receiver room in like 30 or no 15 years is when
Since
Rogers
Rogers,
took
yeah.
over. So when you couple that and the fact that we're a week into training camp, 5 days,
Hmm.
it's there's gonna be a lot of growing pains.
A lot of growing
Um,
pains.
and those competitions too are like it's 2 minute drills. It's stuff like that that like they it's a various amount of competitions and they just want to see like how the offense is working, how people are getting down plays. Efficiency is going to come with time,
Hmm.
hopefully, but this is still the figuring out process. It's normal to have this stuff with young guys at this time of year rather than it being November or
Right,
December,
right,
hopefully.
exactly. So the uh, the real battle here, because like we said, Jordan Love is gonna have this job. The real battle here is between Sean Clifford, Danny Etling, and to a lesser extent, Alex McGaw, who they had just signed to the 90 man, I think, earlier this week from Florida International University. But Sean Clifford was a late, I think, seventh round pick
Fifth
this year,
round.
fifth round. My apologies. Pick in the draft this year from the Packers, and Danny Etling is a quote unquote veteran. Draft,
Certainly journeyman.
yeah, drafted in 2018 by the New England Patriots, and has
So,
bounced around.
let's put some respect on this man's name.
Okay.
He's a Super Bowl champion.
Oh my God,
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
He won it with the Patriots when they beat the Rams.
I think he was on the practice squad for that team, wasn't he? Maybe, I don't know.
Let me see. He's still a Super Bowl champion.
Regardless,
And then he transitioned to the wide receiver position the next camp.
where are you reading this?
Wikipedia.
Ah, I'm on Pro Football Reference, and it does not list him as a Super Bowl champion. Anyways, drafted by New England in
Oh,
2018, and then um, the Falcons claimed him, and he was on the Falcons for about 6 months ish, from middle of 2019 to the end of 2020. Same thing in 2020 or the camp of 2020, who was with the Falcons, and then the Seahawks picked him up. And the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Broncos, the Packers, the Jaguars, the Packers. So he's been around. I don't want to say he's like bad because I think he's fine. I think he'll be an okay backup. But he played for Purdue and LSU in his college career. His last season at LSU in 2017, he threw for 2,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, so 2 picks in 13 games. So, by all means, a pretty solid senior campaign. Especially with he had a quarterback rating of 153.0, so he was pretty good for them that season. And then Sean Clifford this last year for Penn State, 2,800 yards, 24 touchdowns, and seven interceptions. So they weren't a couple of standout college QBs, I'd say. that might make some rumbles in this camp. I've heard not too much because I think obviously most of the talk has been on Jordan Love, but if you watch all the Jordan Love videos, there's like clips of Danny Etling or clips of Sean Clifford making throws to these guys in the background, and they're not throwing too bad. I think um, there was one today I saw Jordan Love in the background throw like a crossing route to Romeo Dobbs, and then I'm pretty sure it's Danny Etling threw a like beautiful ball to I believe um, one of the new wide receivers. I forget who it was, but just beautiful ball, right in the back end, the core of the end zone, dropped it in. It's like, okay, I see you. But a lot of this is going to be determined in preseason. I think this is where you'll get a lot of the meat of this discussion of how these battles will be won.
It's very interesting because this is definitely one of the top three uh, points of or intrigue for me in terms of positional battles because so much of the quotes going into the start of camp, whether it was LaFleur, whether it was Goody, whether it was Jordan Love himself, it was about he's got to be like a sponge. He's got to get as many reps as he can within reason, and it's his time to shine. We want to see what he can do with seeing various looks from the defense, all that kind of stuff. That is very positive, and it's exactly what you need from Jordan Love at this time because he sure as hell is going to see it for the next 5 months. On that note, yeah, like Denny Etling, Sean Clifford, Alex McGough. Is it McGough or McGaw? Is it silent?
I'm gonna go with McGaw, but I'll look it up for you while you
McGaw.
talk.
Um, they're certainly going to get their looks. They're certainly going to work in one-on-ones and stuff like that. But when it comes to commanding the offense, being with, maybe not the ones all the time, certainly not the ones all the time, but twos, whatever alignments that they throw out there, they're not going to get a lot of time. Like so much of the focus is about getting Jordan Love and really establishing and putting his imprint on this team. And they want him to soak up as much as they can. There's only so many times that they can go from doing all that for Jordan Love to the other guys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be really interesting. The fact that Sean Clifford was drafted and it's a 5th-round pick and blah, 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 day 3, you never know. But it's still significant enough that they went out and drafted a quarterback that deep in the draft, a quarterback that draft evaluators at the time thought he was, going to be undrafted. That's certainly interesting, but, Alex McGough is coming off of being a USFL MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Adling has some experience.
Two-time USFL champion.
Yes, exactly. Danny Adling, Super Bowl champion, as we established here, regardless of what PFF says. I just think the youth does not just center around Jordan Love here in terms of
right
backup quarterbacks. Like if we're talking about Danny Adling being the kind of veteran mind, everybody's young here. They're not, they're in a developing phase.
Right.
If that's how anybody should take it. So
I wasn't intending to smile at you. I found out how to say his name.
What is it?
It's Alex Magoo.
Ooh, Magoo. Magoo. That is a weird. Okay.
Yeah, at least according to Wikipedia, he's got a pretty lengthy Wikipedia page for.
He does. I mean, he's a USFL MVP. That's more than what anybody's gonna say about me.
Right. Exactly. So, but it has ME hyphen capital letters GOO. So it's got to be Magoo. So, I'm really actually like intrigued to see how long they let these guys play in all these preseason games. Like, if I'm gonna smile after I say it now, if Alex Magoo is all it's cracked up to be in the USFL, I wonder what he looks like against like NFL talent in the preseason, and maybe he sneaks onto this roster. It's not the most intriguing conversation to have, but I think it's certainly a conversation we can talk about because there's only 4 quarters in a game, and you've got 4 quarterbacks that kind of need some looks. How do you split that time across 3 games to get proper looks at these guys? I think I think it was LaFleur or somebody said that it's hard to get looks in preseason because you're only in there for a short period of time. You don't get the extended looks at them. So
One quarter in a preseason game could swing that. That's
a
what we're
drive
talking
could,
about.
a single drive.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm knocking on wood. I want to see Jordan Love play as much as he can,
Yeah,
whether it's preseason, whether it's regular season, whether it's the damn playoffs because we're gonna go there. Um, but you never know. It's football. One bad tackle or whatever, he could be lost for a game or whatever.
right,
But so you're not that far off from any 3 of these guys or any other guy that they might take a look at because surely Goody's always active.
right. Yeah,
That's where it's really tough to just kind of be like, okay, let's get Jordan Love. What is it? The Peyton Manning phrase. I think we talked about the pod. Maybe we haven't. There's a popular story or like turn of phrase of like someone asked the Colts offensive coordinator why the backup quarterback or backup quarterbacks behind Peyton Manning don't practice with the ones. And the guys responded saying, if we don't have Peyton Manning out
oh,
there, we're
yeah.
fucked or something like
What's the
that.
point?
Yeah, what's
Right.
that's the PG way of saying it.
Got it.
But yeah, like the inverse is also kind of true. Is like, yeah,
Yeah,
we know that we'd be screwed, but it's also like, how bad could it get? Or I don't know. Not to
right.
denigrate these guys, but it's just so uncertain
Yeah, you're good.
beyond love.
Someone needs to play quarterback. Like
Yeah,
if it will be Jordan Love throughout the entire year. I'm speaking that into existence.
yeah,
Um, but if it's any of these guys, then yeah, it's kind of just like you want to know what you have in them in case catastrophe hits. And I think that's kind of it. Like they're all inexperienced. I don't think any of them has an NFL snap, whether it be downs or even throwing a pass. But for sure, Sean Clifford because he's a rookie. But
yeah.
just seeing how these guys are able to do anything in the preseason games will be interesting. It's gonna be ugly, but it'll be interesting. Anything else on the quarterbacks?
No, I think we covered it pretty well there.
Yeah. Go on to the running backs then. Running backs locked up 1 and 2. Aaron
Yeah.
Jones, AJ Dillon. That's it. That's 1-2. They are roster locks. The real battle comes a little bit deeper on the depth chart. We got rookies Lou Nichols III, returning guys Patrick Taylor and Tyler Goodson, an undrafted free agent in Henry Pearson. He's more of a fullback, and then Emmanuel Wilson. Did this time off the practice squad? I'm not remember him. Like not practice squad, but was he like a free agent pickup? Some guy. I'm trying to remember, but
I think
regard
he was on the 90 man going into camp.
got it. Regardless,
Yeah.
going back to sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, he signed with. Oh, I just had it up and here we go. He signed with the Packers in late May.
Got it. So I guess we'll start with the guys we know, and then I have some interesting tidbits on Emmanuel Wilson just from seeing him. Patrick Taylor and Tyler Goodson, returning guys from the last couple of years. This was a battle last year as well. Patrick Taylor won out with that battle. He was, I think he was on the 53-man roster most of the year, if not mistaken, Jordan. I think he might have been hurt the first few weeks, but I forget.
Yes, because Kylan Hill.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But he didn't play too bad in his in his games where he did have a couple chances to go. Going back into 2021, he has one career touchdown. It came against the Lions in week 17, or rather week 18 of the 21 season. 11 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown. And then one or two passes for 3 yards, so not too much there. But last year didn't get much run at all. Only 30, or I'm sorry, only 10 total attempts last year for 31 yards. So wasn't really incorporated much. He had one big uh, reception for 17 yards. But like I said, not too much there for Patrick Taylor. Tyler Goodson has been in the practice squad the past couple years. He was drafted in 2022, I believe. Yeah, by
Yep.
the
Iowa.
yep. I'm pretty sure drafted by
Iowa.
Packers. I just want to um make sure I have that right. Right. It doesn't want to tell me. Was he drafted?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, because he got waived and everything. So, um, but spent the last year with the practice squad and with the Packers last year. His stats at Iowa, he had 1,100 yards in his junior campaign at Iowa, running on the ground, 250 yards through the air, and 7 total touchdowns. So not too bad. 600 yards his freshman year, 750 yards his sophomore year, 7 touchdowns his sophomore year to go ahead of his 6 from his junior year. But this is gonna be a battle again. I think like this might be the last like roster spot they decide. Not that any order matters, but I think this one will be the closest essentially.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it maybe kind of like midsummer tidbits and stuff like
Yeah.
that of from I think the running backs coach, I'm forgetting the guy's name. But he talked about how important special teams is going to factor into that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was also the time. Oh yeah, it was around definitely around OTAs and stuff like that.
Ben Sermons
Guys like
is the running backs coach.
yes, there we go. Um, and we were talking about I think Aaron Jones was talking about Tyler Goodson and how much he's improved and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, it's it's hard to with that in mind. These guys could do really well, but if you're not gonna, do your job on special teams and stuff like that could easily make or break it. Like a guy like Luke Nichols, who looked, if you look at his stats and stuff like that, he has prolific numbers on a couple seasons and stuff like that.
I
Does he buy it?
right.
I know you're big on the train.
I really, for honestly no particular reason other than his like stats and a couple of things I've been seeing with him. Just like obviously like after the draft we kind of looked at him. I loved his tape. Um, his 2022 campaign was a little shorter. Only played 9 games. It had 616 yards, but it had 6 touchdowns in those 9 games. His junior year, or I'm sorry, his 2021 year. I'm not sure why there's a star by it, but 1,850 yards on the ground, 350 yards through the air, 18 total touchdowns. He had 2,100 yards from scrimmage at Central Michigan and is in 2021. Like that's you can play, dog. Like he can play, and I just really want to see what he can do at this level. I
Yeah.
think what's going to happen is that this battle between there's 2 battles happening. There's the battle between Lou Nichols and Emmanuel Wilson, who I saw at training camp on Saturday, and he had a lot of really powerful runs, and he's had a lot of really nice catches. I watched him make a beautiful over-the-shoulder catch on Twitter like today,
Yeah.
and just like looks really good. Looks like a nice pass catcher for a running back. But I think the 2 battles are going to be Lou Nichols and Emmanuel Wilson for a 4th spot, and Patrick Taylor and Tyler Goodson for that
Tyler
3rd
Goodson.
spot. Like I think the gap between Patrick Taylor and Tyler Goodson or the gap between those 2 guys, those tiers of
Yeah.
guys, is too large for Lou Nichols or Emmanuel Wilson to overcome in this training camp. So I think there's the battle for the third spot on the 53-man roster, and I would bet that they either sign either of those guys, the other one that doesn't make it, to the practice squad, or they might try and go somewhere else to get there, because that'd be like, if Tyler Goodson gets signed to the practice squad again, I'd imagine you'd want to try to find a job somewhere else with a different team that needs running back, frankly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, or the Packers might let him walk and keep their draft pick, Lou Nichols, or the better of Emmanuel Wilson. That's kind of where I'm getting at with this. Just because looking into the future, I think Lou Nichols slots to be, if they don't keep him, the AJ Dillon replacement. I don't think he's got like the power that AJ Dillon does, but he can go. He can
Yeah.
run. And I'm interested to see how he runs in preseason, because if he can find a niche for himself as that power back and be a good blocker, because like a lot of this is going to come down to how good you can play special teams and how good of a third down blocker you are as a running back, because you have to be able to do it as a third down back or as a third string backup.
Yeah.
So that's my hope, is that he really shows out and makes an impression on the staff, or they keep him on the practice squad and hopefully have a spot for him in the future.
Well, that's the thing too, is that Dylan's contract year kind of hovers over
All of this.
decisions like this, because you're thinking about this season, but then you're thinking about just months down the line. So yeah, what helps your team now versus what helps your team in the future? Running
Right.
back, third running back is certainly going to be informed by that kind of decision.
Right. Worth noting that AJ Dillon said he wanted to finish his career with the Packers, like finish his career as in he wanted to stay here for a very long time. Ultimately not up to him, as much as it
Yeah.
pains me to say. But I'd like to see him be here as long as he can contribute. Like, I think if he has a 21 year for the next few years, that's good. If he has a 22 year, maybe they move on, kind of thing. Like, if he has a 2021 year this season, they'll re-sign him, I think, to some modest contract. If he has a year similar to last year, I think that makes that decision a lot harder.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I guess, what are your thoughts on Lou Nichols versus the Goodson Taylor battle?
I kind of am indifferent by and large, but it does, like, I don't, it's not that it's this like specificity of like whether it's those guys. I understand the importance of like they kind of need to balance this in a way where you can't just go for not that Patrick Taylor is this, but the solid option, the guy that's going to understand his role. I mean, we're coming out of a season where Kylan Hill got released because he didn't do the things that they wanted him to do.
Right.
Like it's a real thing. Like
It is.
you can be a talented guy, and if you don't show up for the 4 plays that you might be on the field for a game, that certainly it's a business.
Right.
It's a business, man. Um, so I'm not getting sucked into like what direction it is or who it is like specifically. I just know that like you don't want to rue this conversation with like, oh, they got rid of the wrong guy, when it could be like Mike Abernathy last year, and then
Don't you say his
well,
name.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying because now it's like the safety competition. That's for another pod, but
Yeah.
like that kind of comes back to bite you.
Yeah. And they could have used Micah Abernathy this year, and he got signed to the practice
Could have
squad.
easily been starting if they kept him.
Probably. But
Yeah.
anyways, last year in the preseason, probably worth noting, Patrick Taylor, in 3 games had 18 rushes for, quick math, 37, 34, about 71 yards, and only three receptions in the game against the Chiefs for 17 yards. So a little under 90 yards. No, exactly. Yeah, a little under 90 yards total from scrimmage last year in the preseason. Tyler Goodson had a lot more opportunities. He had 29 total carries for just about 100 yards, a little bit short of that maybe, but I think close to 100. And then over 60 yards in the passing game. 5 receptions, 1 reception, and 2 receptions in the games.
Ooh.
So I think this kind of points to, because I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I wanted Goodson over Taylor last year just based on stats. But I think that this is where it comes in to where that third down, that third string running back needs to be able to block, needs to be able to play special teams. And that's where
Yeah.
it's going to be decided. Like, that's just how it is on this team and how it is on most NFL teams. And so it's always tough to try and find the guy in special teams to make sure he's doing his job right when you're watching on TV. But it's something to probably watch in just all the correspondence from Packers beat reporters this training camp.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anything else in running backs?
No. I think we kind of set the tone there. Set the table.
Into the wide receivers.
Mm.
The top three are kind of set. Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs. I actually should say top two. Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs are set. Those two guys are currently standing out in camp right now. Romeo Dobbs absolutely just dusted Jair Alexander today. It was really cool. I think he's going to be special. I think he's going to be really special. Samari Toure coming back. He's gotten a lot of buzz this offseason, slimming down, getting stronger, and just having a refined focus as opposed to last year. They got a couple rookies, Jaden Reed, Dontavion Wicks, and Grant DeBose. And then they have Cody Crest, Bo Melton, Deuce Watts, Malik Heath, and Jadakiss Bonds. Excuse me. Jadakiss, sorry. Jadakiss Bonds as their other receivers to go with Andre Miller, we talked about earlier, fighting for this like fifth, sixth-ish wide receiver spot. So I guess this is a question for after the preseason, but curious as to how many you think they have. How many receivers do you think they're going to keep?
6.
I think they also go 6. I could see them going 5 and keeping 4 tight ends. Like I think it's like one or the other. You know what I mean? I think they have 9 total receivers, and they might get to 10, maybe, but I think it's gonna be close.
I would say 6 and 3, but that's where this is pre-seeing guys
Yeah, I think
play.
we both agree that Musgrave and Kraft should like make the roster, and it's kind of
Deguara.
yes, and well then that's the thing is that then it's a decision between DeGuara and Tyler Davis. I think we'll talk about this we'll talk about this in the tight end section.
Bookmark this.
Bookmark this. Just we'll come back to it. We'll put a pin in that's a little tease. But yeah, wide receivers at this point, I'm pretty for certain it's going to be Watson, Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Samari Toure. I think are 4 locks for roster
I think those
spots.
are the locks. I think
Their order,
Dontavian-
the order on 3 through 6 is different, but I think those 4 are for sure making the roster.
Yeah. Dontavian Wicks, is he still in concussion protocol? He did suffer concussion early in camp.
I think he might be. I haven't seen anything on like Twitter of him doing anything, so I'm pretty sure he might be, but I'll
He's
double
still-
check.
Grant DuBose, we talked about it last week. There was finally some clarity about what has kept him out of football activities, and it was a back injury, if I remember correctly now.
That is
And
right.
yeah, because he opened camp on the NFI list.
Yep. Dontavian Wicks did suffer a concussion during Wednesday's practice, so it hasn't been a week yet. So he'll probably be out for probably until the first preseason game,
Yeah. Now we're getting into
which hurts
It hurts.
because between Dontavian Wicks and Grant DeBose, that's 2 rookies you drafted
That's the two. Yeah, exactly.
that just aren't getting time, which we saw last year with Christian Watson really matters in just getting reps and getting to know the playbook.
Malik Heath has kind of made flashes, whether it was in June or May. Whether that can continue into camp, who knows? Bo Melton was a guy that people kind of salivated for after deep into last season, kind of being like a futures guy that they signed, I believe from Seattle too, because he got cast off from there.
Think you're
Cody
right.
Crest, we saw them pick up just before
Last
camp or
week.
right at the start of camp. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the first practice, I'm pretty sure.
It's a lot more. This is where like things okay, like not to kind of bring back that into the conversation, but like if you have that much uncertainty deep into the wide receiver room, you might take a nod and like, well, let's see where the tight ends are at, and you look at. I hate that we're kind of that I'm clumping this together, but it is a very fluid situation where they're all pass catchers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They're aligned at different spots,
Yeah.
and Jordan Love clicking with a tight end and wide receivers being hurt or lagging behind in camp as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's symbiotic.
Yeah.
So
Why don't we loop in the tight ends and the wide receivers
should we loop
together?
them in?
Yeah, as pass catchers, because I think you bring up a great point that with the injuries to Dontavian Wicks and Grant DeBose, that it really limits where these pass catchers are at and the amount of them that they can rely on. Not
Yeah.
that you can like truthfully rely on Dontavian Wicks or Grant DeBose, but what you can rely on them for is like outside blocking.
Yeah.
Because Dontavian Wicks in his two practices on Tuesday and Wednesday was doing pretty
Great.
well on the outside blocking. And so I think that's just going to be what it comes down to. But yeah, it's very fluid because if you lock up your top four of Watson, Dobbs, Toure, and Reed, I think you still need to have a fifth receiver, no matter what. But then,
Oh yeah.
but like, who are they going to pick, and what do they want to do for the tight ends? Because I think if they go through this camp and they have no set fifth or sixth, I think it makes this tight end discussion a hell of a lot easier.
Yes.
Because you have Josiah DeGuara, who's been a Love's favorite, semi-favorite target in camp so far.
Safety valve guy.
Yeah. Tyler Davis, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but it is what it is. And then obviously your rookies in Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. Luke Musgrave has been predictably a rookie in camp, but shown some highlights, and he didn't really do too much when I saw him at camp on Saturday. Nothing like eye popping or anything like that. Just making kind of routine catches. We haven't seen much Tucker Kraft this camp season so far. I think he was nursing an injury, if I'm not mistaken.
He suffered an injury, I believe, Saturday's practice,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back later, or
Yeah.
maybe that was Monday's practice. It was the first practice with Pav, so it was Monday.
Yeah.
So he warded off a serious injury, but if that's your kind of shining highlight this camp, that
Right.
that's not the greatest thing.
Right. You hope to see some more highlights on Twitter and stuff that for sure in the preseason games just of what's going on with him. So just to show that he can do some stuff. Rob Dombrowski said that, quote, some within the organization believe Musgrave has star potential. So hopefully, I think we talked about this last week too, that rookie tight ends hardly ever pop off in the rookie season. It always takes them a few years to kind of get going. This would sort of track with how DeGuara is going, getting a few years under his belt and kind of potentially shining as he gets his chance with Jordan Love. I don't think Aaron Rodgers liked Josiah DeGuara very much, so we'll see how that shakes out with his playing time and just target share and things like that coming into the season. I think you'll see a lot of love to DeGuara in the preseason, if anything.
Yeah, and I know that LaFleur said it to start the camp, but he did kind of hint at kind of favoring DeGuara because he has been in the system. He has,
Right.
by and large, been there for the last. This is going to be his fourth year, so you kind of give it to the guy that has been there until one of the young guns supplants him.
Right.
But again, as we talked about tight ends, like it is a hard position to master. It might not be year one and it might not be year two, but
Yeah.
having some healthy competition kind of puts their feet to the fire, so to speak. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah. I think like the biggest thing that will come from training camp is just seeing how well these guys can block. Because
Yeah,
LaFleur loves using
it's the barrier or bar for entry.
pretty much if you can't block, you're just not gonna really get a whole lot of run on the field. What I would frankly like to see happen, and I don't mean to be a hater, truthfully. Like I really don't want to. I just don't really believe in Tyler Davis. Like he's just not how. I've seen enough of little things in games. I'm just not really
It just,
jiving with it.
however, he has done well in practice and stuff like that. Like when it comes to games, he's had some pretty bad
It
drops.
hasn't translated.
It just hasn't translated. Like it happens.
Yep.
Like we're not talking about we're not talking about Kyle Pitts here.
Right. And what I'd like to see happen is to let Tyler Davis go and then sign Mercedes Lewis again. And then teach these guys how
That
to
is the
block.
thing that hovers over everything with
Yeah,
tight end.
and I'm just screaming it from the sidelines. Hey, please do it. It's gonna be really smart, I promise. Because he, Lafleur said he loved, or Mercedes Lewis said he loved playing for him. And if you're gonna end up keeping four tight ends in the first place, why not one of them
Why not have a
be a
guy?
veteran like that and like just a leader in the locker room? Like, you want to talk about garnering respect? Big Dog is that guy.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get these two rookie tight ends to really understand what it means to be a blocking tight end, I don't think you can learn from anyone better.
I don't think so either. It is there's another part of the roster that is uncomfortably hanging over the Packers, even more so than I thought at this time, than it would be at this time. We'll save it for another pod because it's not going to be on this one. But I was kind of jarred to see how open Goody and LaFleur were talking about Mercedes Lewis. And I understand it because it's like, it's not about, we're not talking about, this is a symbolic thing. Um, it's about locker room culture changer guys that kind of lead by example. Yeah, Mercedes Lewis is not a tight end one anymore, but like he knows his role, knows how to play, knows how to score touchdowns in extraordinary ways as he showed last year.
Right.
But it's more of like how can that champion this new era of the Packers and kind of keep things even keeled when young guys are who haven't been through this before, you're going to be riding waves. You know what I mean? Like camp is like that. The
Right.
season is certainly like that on times 10.
Right.
So it is kind of it's so obvious, but it's also like I understand why he's not on the team right now because you want to see Musgrave, you want to see
Yeah.
Tucker Craft. I personally, I'm still like on like I am very intrigued by DeGuara. It's just a matter of putting that together, and maybe that clicks with Jordan Love more than it did with Aaron Rodgers because I do agree with you. I don't think Rodgers and DeGuara kind of meshed in a way that felt very. It kind of symbolized Aaron Rodgers freelance how he views to play and how LaFleur viewed, hey, this guy is a very specific gadget type guy. Let's incorporate him into the offense.
Right.
And that just never kind of
It never meshed.
fully, yeah.
Yeah, it never meshed. And like frankly, it kind of pulling from the basketball idea of the last roster spot. You kind of want to be a vet guy that can like help other guys learn, kind of like in like the Wes Matthews role. Like Wes Matthews kind of
You're going
played.
to say Thanasis?
Nope, they're not. He should not be talked about on my pod, Jordan. Not if I'm here. Um, is like a big part of Wesley Matthews' value last year was mentoring Marjan, and like
Oh, yeah.
I think that's like more valuable than what Wes could have provided on the court throughout the season. He was very good throughout the season, as for what a very good
Really good at the playoffs.
right as for whatever a very good 36-year-old wing player can do. The point being is that if you give these guys a year under one of the best blocking tight ends and one of just a the better tight ends of the 2000s, 2010s. Why not do it? That 53 guy kind of matters a little bit more than sort of the 10th through 15th guys do in basketball. But he's not like he's bad. He had good blocking season last year, and he still caught balls. Like, I think he still has value as a football player, even if he's not an every down football player like he would have been the past 2, 3 years of the Packers.
The irony is that this would have been very useful last year if they had, somehow if we merged the rosters together where you have the young guys and then Mercedes Lewis or DeGuara kind of like in the middle of that.
Right.
You could get to that place if you so choose, but a lot of things kind of have to fall into place for that to happen, I guess, because for whatever interest that they have, the Packers aren't going out of their way to be like, we need Mercedes Lewis back,
Mm-hmm.
because that would
Which,
he would be on the team.
yeah, he would be. I think it'll be really interesting to see what sort of moves they do after the game against the Bengals. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean we're what 9 days away from that.
Ish. Yeah, we have family nights this
10?
weekend. Yeah, family night is this weekend, and the weekend after is the game against the Bengals in Cincy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Like, truthfully, despite all of this discourse, I'd be very surprised if they actually cut Tyler Davis and re-signed Mercedes Lewis. But I do think it would be very beneficial. I would prefer it, frankly. But
Yeah.
it still doesn't help with the pass catching situation. Like, he's not going to be a route runner. He's going to be a blocker. He can still run routes a little bit, but he's not fleet of foot. Which isn't like the issue. It's just kind of things you got to think about when you're trying to find pass catchers for Jordan Love to throw to. And I think that's going to be the big balance is who's catching the ball. It might just be the top four, Watson, Dobbs, Toure, and Reed, and then DeGuara and insert second tight end here throughout the week. Like, I just don't think that fifth wide receiver is going to be seeing a whole lot of action.
No, yeah, those are the four that if you're
Yeah.
strictly talking about guys that are going to see action, if we're talking about fantasy guys, that's how I'm kind of breaking it
Right.
down to memory.
That's how it breaks down to it. The issue then becomes when injuries arise.
Yes.
So
It gets thin very quickly.
it gets thin
and it's
very
already
quickly.
pretty thin.
It's, yeah, right. And I wouldn't even be surprised if there's a camp casualty, like a vet camp casualty, that they just go out and get. I'm not really sure how much they're able to with the cap, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is sort of the route they take coming into the season. If they think they really need one, like maybe their fifth wide receiver is some vet a la what was his name, Jordan, the fella that the Packers signed in 2020 that didn't play. Oh, it's gonna drive you bonkers.
Vamp.
He was a fringe wide receiver 3. He sat out the COVID season because of COVID, and then got hurt.
Devin Funchess.
Devin Funchess. Similar vein, where he's a quote unquote veteran. He has experience in the league, and he's just a guy to fill a spot should there be injuries. Ended up not working out. He sat out the COVID year and then got hurt last year, or 21, I believe. Just never worked out, right? But
And other things happened. He had that press conference.
I missed this news, but not that it matters.
Yeah.
A similar vein.
He did it to himself. That's what I will say.
Okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part. I must have missed it. But regardless of the point, I think that is going to be a very, very, very likely option for this team, because if Dontavian Wicks isn't able to practice for a few weeks, like, he's got a concussion. Just because it's training camp doesn't mean it's not a concussion that is treated similarly
honestly,
to how it is during the regular season.
I would DeBose. That's way more concerning, and it's easily more like, yeah, we cut ties with our seventh round pick months after selecting him.
Seventh round pick.
If he's not on the field when decisions are being made, like I think
I'll feel bad for him. It'll be a
absolutely
sad story.
Yeah.
He might make the practice squad or something like that, but
Yeah.
I think it would be beneficial for Dontavian Wicks to be say because I think he has a bigger talent profile than Grant DuBose does,
Yes.
and
He's certainly show with productivity too.
exactly, and so I think Dontavian Wicks is like I'm not gonna say the leader to say because he clearly isn't practicing. You can't count on a guy to be on the team if he's not practicing, injuries
Yeah.
aside. But I think he has a better chance, given everything, to make the roster over anybody else that we've mentioned.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be one of I think like I mentioned to you pre-pod that the running back battle is kind of the biggest one on offense. Um, I should say of the specialists, and I think it'll be the most competitive. The running back one will. The more interesting and more season impacting battle will be the down wide receiver one.
Yeah.
So, okie dokie. Last but certainly not least, unless you have anything else on receivers, Jordan.
No, no, no. I think we kind of, again, I think we really outlined uh just how,
Volatile. This room is.
yeah, it gets, again, it kind of drops off quickly into very just uncertain parts unknown.
Right. Um, last but certainly not least, the men in the trenches, the offensive line. The Packers brought back all 10, I think, or 13. Correct me, Jordan, on the total specifics, but a bunch of linemen from last year are right back on the camp this year.
Mm.
Um, the starters projected, as Jordan and I made this document, from left to right, All Pro Dave Bakhtiari, All Pro Elton Jenkins, um, Josh Myers, we'll see, um, John Runyon Jr. and Zach Tom. It'll be interesting. The depth guys: Josh Nyman, Royce Newman, Caleb Jones, Sean Ryan, and Jake Hansen. I think is Sean Ryan the one who's suspended for PEDs?
Yeah, he got suspended last year.
I think no. Is it was it last year? Or is it this year?
It was last year.
Okay, so um, I saw that he slimmed down a bunch. He's taken a bunch of like vitamins and all natural stuff, and it's working with the Packers trainer to make sure he doesn't get suspended like that again. From what he said, it was an accident. He said a supplement he was taking ended up having the PEDs in it. So take what you will from that. Um, but I think the biggest thing in this battle is I think the players that we projected as the start will be the starters and will make the team. Bakhtiari, Jenkins, Myers, Runyon, and Tom. I think where Tom slots in is going to be a interesting, I guess, little nugget of who they keep and who they cut. Because obviously you're going to keep probably 10, maybe 11 offensive linemen. So it'll be interesting to see where those guys slot in and who they keep based on where they want Zach Tom to play.
We have arrived to I'm going to break the position battle, whatever you want to call it. Um, I don't think tight end was the other kind of like position of like just how they sorted
The
it out.
the one you were focused on.
Yeah, yeah. So it's QB2, tight end one, and then now I conveniently come to Zach Tom because Dave, we're recording this. Zach Tom lined up at center during camp, and I'm sure looked very well. A lot of buzz about how he's gained muscle over the offseason. He talked about um, kind of building up a better base, talking about the kind of what he improved on from his rookie year and ways that he can, whether it was mentally, physically, everything like that. He talked about there was a specific quote where he talked about kind of thinking plays as they were happening during games, and it kind of messed with timing, reaction, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I do think we are just in for the next Packers lineman to kind of assert himself for the future. I just don't know where that's going to be
Yeah, I think.
because I would have easily. I do think it's conventional wisdom would probably be right tackle.
Yeah, I think. I think they throw him in. I think they give Josh Myers another year at at center and let him work out any sort of issues he might have experienced last year, and just let him decide what he wants to do. Like if Josh Myers wants to be a pro player, go out there and show us. You're gonna have
Um,
time this season to do it. Unless he's like horrendously bad, then I think they'll step in quite quickly. But I think they're gonna put Zach Tom at right tackle to begin the year, and then if it goes poorly this season, they might slot him back into the center position going forward in his career, and then draft. This is pie in the sky. I talked about this in the Discord. Plug the Discord, GSPN info. Get in there talking about all things Packers, Brewers, Bucks, everything else. It's a good time. Any who's will be. If they'll move Tom to center if Myers has another bad year at center, and then with one of the two first round picks we're going to have next year because Aaron Rodgers is going to play 65% of snaps for the Jets. Pick a high offensive lineman. Like where would the Packers pick? I'd imagine somewhere between 20 and 7 ish. Like just or between 7 and 20 to go in chronological order. Whatever pick it like that first round pick is, our pick is just going to be a lineman. I think is the best way
yeah.
to go about it. And then best like BPA for the Jets pick, wherever that lands as well. You do BPA anyways. Packers do most of the time, but best player available. My apologies. But I really think they need to like start drafting linemen because as we talked about last week, they didn't draft a lineman this year. So
No.
it's gonna matter for certain this year if Josh Myers is bad, and they need to start getting some linemen in here to really bolster his spot going forward.
And the thing too is like with Tom specifically and Myers, because this is year 3 for Josh Myers. He's played under Aaron Rodgers. Rookie season, I thought he played pretty well. Last year was kind of like eh.
That was kind of the issue is that we
If
like Josh Myers played really well his rookie year, and then didn't play that well last year.
yeah, not good to have a decline in year 2, whether sophomore slump, blah 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 blah. But he was one of the guys that was largely healthy throughout the year. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like that's where it kind of showed a lot more. Where it's not about we're not talking about Bakhtiari or even Elton Jenkins who missed time to start the year because they're coming back from injury. Guy was there for all 17 games,
Right.
and the thing for him is that if you have a willing replacement who is very versatile on the line, like Zach Tom, that can easily take over your position, that has experience playing that in college, and the Packers went out of their way to bring back Josh Nyman, who has had moments. He's not. I don't know if he's a starting caliber right tackle, but
I think he's a
for a depth
starting
guy,
caliber right tackle on a bad team.
that could be the Packers this year, though.
It could be the Packers this year, but I think the Packers O line is one of the strongest offensive lines in the league.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
have an embarrassment of riches at offensive line right now, and I think if he plays well enough, again they tendered him to
Yeah.
get him on the roster or to get something for him if someone wanted to sign him this offseason. And so I think that was kind of the writing on the wall that they're not too like steadfast on
It's the best
keeping
of
him.
the,
It's the best of
it's the
both
best
worlds.
of yeah,
You either
or
keep him or you get a pick for him. Simple enough.
I don't even know if it's best of bad options. It's like best of like
Both worlds. Hannah Montana.
yeah, you're right. Mana Montana.
Yes. But like that's the thing is that if Yash has another year at right tackle, which I don't think he's starting. He like it's gonna be a battle between Tom and Nyman for sure, for that spot, and even the guard spot. Like John Runyon Jr. got supplemented from the ones by Royce Newman Wednesday. So yeah, that was everybody's reaction. Jordan, there was some Royce Newman was taking some snaps with the
I
ones.
can see that that's gonna be a meme. I can already tell
It
that.
certainly will be. I'm making notes now. But it's just like
Golly
they
damn.
have three set players, four maybe, in
Tom is
Tom.
set. It's just you don't know
You don't
where.
know where and where he slots
Yeah.
in brings up questions for who else you can kind of put in on the line, which is where I think it gets tough. If you put Tom at anywhere but right tackle, you have to have, I think, Nyman at right tackle.
Question.
Go for it.
How do I phrase this into a question?
Because
Because you're easily gonna be like, oh, it's this. The lineman to watch for going into this year is Josh Myers.
yes,
Clearly. Would you be willing to have a better center, Zach Tom, at the expense of Yash Nyman, who decent right tackle, or would you rather have it be guy that needs to prove it center, Josh Myers,
can I
and a you know the up and coming Zach Tom?
can I do both? Can I let Josh Myers get through 8 games, get through the bye week? Honestly, week 6 is the bye week this year.
Week 6 is the bye week.
Get through the bye week and see how he's performing, and if it's like,
I think I don't think they're I think the Packers are gonna be patient.
yeah, but I think
Like it would have to be
I think
something
that's all I need.
abominable.
That's all I want is like 5 weeks of evidence. If Josh Myers is holding his own through 5 weeks, I'll ride with him the rest of the season, because this comes back this entire season being gravy anyways. I have no expectations. I'm just excited to watch football, and
Yeah, it's
it's
development. That's the
it's
part
all
that's the
development
most
this
fun thing to
season.
do.
On the offense, it's all development, and unless it's going very poorly to where it's becoming detrimental to the offense operating how it needs to do to develop Jordan Love and the rest of this and the wide receiver core, like say Josh Myers is getting lit up in the middle and he just can't doesn't have any time in the pocket because he can't hold the zone, then yeah, it's time to get him out and put Tom in because it's inhibiting the development we need. But I want to go through like 5 games of seeing that before I immediately pull him and put Tom there instead. So I guess to answer your question from the get go, I'd rather just start Tom there.
Tom
Then
at right tackle,
nope,
Myers at center.
nope. If we're going to think of the full season, I think Tom's a better offensive lineman than Josh Myers is,
Yes.
and so I want a full season of Zach Tom at center, and then Nyman at right tackle. I'm more confident in Tom's baseline than I am in Myers' baseline,
Myers,
and I
yes.
think that pushes him further ahead of Myers for me because, like I just said, ultimately this season's about development. And if I have to pick a season of Myers or a season of Tom and how it affects Jordan Love's development and his ability to have time in the pocket to throw the ball, I'm just picking the better offensive lineman. Nyman has experience at right tackle. It's not like you're throwing in an inexperienced guy at right tackle. And
No.
it's his front side. If it was his back side, a different conversation. But it's his front side. He can see stuff coming. It's easier to hide a tougher or a worse right tackle
Yeah.
than it is to
And that's
right
the point that I was getting to is that it's easier to hide Nyman
throw
versus
like Musgrave or DeGuara at the end of the
yeah.
line and just have double team him essentially.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, to answer your question, I'd rather Tom and Nyman versus Myers and Tom.
And Tom.
We didn't even talk about the bubble guys.
No, sorry.
Rasheed Walker, big
He's,
guy, huge, 6'8".
from what I've seen of people that have been at camp, he's had a good camp.
Yeah, he. I saw him like a little bit in some drills. Looked pretty strong in drills, but
I remember thinking he was
drills
pretty good. The Packers drafted him last year
he
too.
did.
Like
I
he
think
is a draft pick.
I think he's a little slow is the issue.
Mm,
Like I think a smaller edge rusher, like nobody's really winning against Nick Bosa, but that kind of
no.
like strong edge rusher that has ability to swim through
Gosh, Naima
blocks.
did after letting him 2 sacks. But
Right. Um, the like the fast edge rusher that can kind of swim through big blocks like that, I think gives Rasheed Walker a bit of trouble. And it doesn't help that he plays a position that the Packers have on lockdown already. Like no one's usurping Bakhtiari at left tackle, and they have
Not this year.
Tom and Nyman at right tackle. Right.
No.
So maybe they keep Walker again in case Bakhtiari gets traded midseason or something like that. But you get the point. But then Luke Tenuta, did they bring him back last year or from this year? Or is he new?
Yeah, he was a holdover.
Yep. Kadeem Telfort, I believe, is new. Both tackles, Tenuta and Telfort.
Yep.
Gene DeLance, he is new. Cole Schneider, holdover from last year, but wasn't with the team all of last year, just returning for camp, center. And like you mentioned earlier, James Empey, also a center. So I would
MP Penn.
sure, Jordan, Empey Penn. You know the tomato meme I want to throw it. Big tomato action. Interesting that they got the two centers signed. I think they're really looking at center because they just it just has to be a lockdown line. They have too good of players to not have it be the best it can be across the middle.
Especially with a young quarterback, because
Has to
it's
be.
not it's yeah it is so again symbiosis, whatever. It's directly related to Jordan Love and being able to command the offense and everything like that, transferring the ball, snapping the ball, as
It's
simple as something like that, or like calling out protections, calling out defenses, all that stuff
right.
with so much uncertainty. With I hate that we're just kind of like piling on Josh Myers, but it just feels like that is the
He was
weakest link on this line by far.
the rest of the line was four stainless steel chain links, and then there's Josh Myers who was a rusted out,
And he's
barely
like
holding on link in the middle.
a saloon door,
Yeah, and
which is why would you have a saloon door on a fence? But you don't have tone.
I think. Oh, I lost my train of thought now.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. Oh, we've talked about like how important it is for Jordan Love. It's really important for the offense too, just to have the center position be locked down
Yeah.
because we're gonna run the ball. The Packers are going to run the ball, and if you remember how painful it was last year to run on 4th and 1, remember how bad it was?
It is honestly that is not even just last year. That's been
Well, right, but
under
then
the floor. Yeah.
exactly, and we have AJ Dillon to run the A gaps, and
Yep.
if you're running an A gap, you need your center and your guards to be pushing the pile. And
Uh-huh.
if Josh Myers has a bad year like last year, he's not going to be pushing that pile, and he's not going to be beneficial to setting up that run game for the rest of the offense.
Yeah.
Like we know LaFleur does a lot of run game outside, a lot of passing game, like short passing game outside, but you still throw between the tackles. And
Yeah.
if Josh Myers is the swinging door in the chain link fence, then it kind of blows up most run plays.
I think this line is really. I mean, I've read a lot of interviews. Obviously, it's Packer season and everything like that. I don't think people are underselling how good this offensive line is going to be, and it's going to. If the Packers are a surprising success to the low expectations that kind of surround this team, a lot of it is going to be due to this offensive line being healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and B, really pushing the pedal to the metal, for lack of a better way of saying this, because they have two All Pros in Bach and Jenkins. They have Zach Tom, who's been again. There's just so much buzz about like how locked in he is going into the year,
Right.
and why am I forgetting the other? John Runyon, like I know again, he's not as proven. He's
Yep.
kind of between Tom and Myers in that way, where he's had a lot more experience, like
Yeah.
Myers, but
He wasn't as
still
bad as
kind of
Myers last year. He isn't as
yeah,
good as Tom should be this year.
yeah. But like I don't know, I am very. It is very telling that of all the things that have changed on this offense, the Packers went out of their way to bring back a lot of the guys that were there last year, or obviously a lot longer. And you know, that is the strength of this team for a long time, between whether it's players or the people, Adam Sidovich, guys that have been on staff. So,
Right.
yeah,
I think it'll be interesting. I think that'll be running back and offensive line will be like the two battles to watch on cut day.
yes.
Just
Oh, yeah.
because like wide receiver will be and tight end will be kind of I think it'll be pretty cut and dry
Yeah.
based on how preseason games go. But running back and O line will be a discussion about direction of the team for sure.
Yes.
Um, Before we get out of here, mentioning if the Packers have success because of the O line. ESPN Analytics ranked Packers fifth in pass block win rate last year and eighth in run block win rate. So if they can keep that pace, they'll bode well for them this season.
I was very surprised to see that,
Yeah.
especially because I think they definitely ended the season a lot stronger than I think we even realized in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people are just forgetting how discombobulated it was for a good 6 weeks.
Right. Yeah. It didn't help that the QB like to hang on the ball a lot longer than he should have too.
Too.
But that's also because receivers couldn't get open either. So there's no one person to blame. Don't think that I'm paying it all on
Yeah.
Rodgers, but
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it was just a mess last season. So
Yeah.
all right, buddy. Anything else?
I think that's the offense.
I think that's the offense. We'll be back later this week with the defense. But before we get out of here, we got a few promotions to do across the Eurostep Podcast Network. As always, Ty and Rohan released an episode this week talking about just are the Bucks better or worse on paper? Look at the roster. What does it scream to you just from the players? Really good pod. Would recommend you listen to it. I'm not name dropped. I don't know why you would ask me that, Jordan. I don't know why you'd even mention such sort of thing. And me being compared to Kevin Garnett and being accurately just comparing the two of us, like I don't know. Listen, I didn't say it. You said it. So maybe go listen to your step. You can find the Bucks feed. Um, Adam McGee and Andrew Snyder talked about the Brewers getting unfortunately swept by the Braves this past weekend, but hot in your podcast inboxes, in your feeds even, as of damn recently. Brewers adding Mark Canna, Andrew Chafin, Evan McKendry, and Bradley Bullock at the trade deadline. Today's August 1st. Trade deadline was today. Brewers made more moves than I thought they would, frankly. So go listen to Andrew and Adam decipher all of those moves. I for sure will be listening to it probably as this pod hits your feeds on the morning of August 2nd. And last but certainly not least is make time for this. Andrew and Adam again talking about Oppenheimer and just its beautifulness. I've yet to see it. I know Jordan, you saw it, and you.
I loved it. I
There
loved
you
it.
go.
I'm not gonna say a lot because I know you have to see it.
Yes, I've.
But it is
It's weird.
well worth it.
It's weird to say I've avoided spoilers because like it's a history movie. Like I know the ending.
Do you?
Not that it's a thing that you should laugh about, but
No. No.
um, I'm excited to see it, and I will be sprinting to that make time for this episode once I do. So that's it from us, folks. You can find me on Twitter at Numac is known. You can find Jordan on Twitter at Jordan Tresky. You can find Talk on the Tundra on Twitter at Packers GSPN. You can find all things Eurostep Podcast Network at gspn.info, including Substacks, Discord links, and all of the pod links to Apple Pod, Spotify, all that good stuff there. So go check it out. Give it a click. We'd appreciate it. We'll be back in your podcast feeds later this week. Until then, thanks for listening. And Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.